Hi, this is Riaz from Networks Learning. Welcome to Cisco Next Generation Firewall training. Uh, in this video, we will have an overview on URL filtering in FTD. We will understand the basics and the mechanism how why we need to implement URL filtering and what is the purpose and how does it provide security to our network and how it contributes towards the towards the security of your network. Basically, in previous videos we have gone through multiple strategies of security intelligence, including networks, including URLs, adding them to block list, adding them to do not block list, uh, basically the whitelist or blacklist concept. We have gone through it. Also, we uh, configured their DNS policy. You can see over here in previous video, and we also have gone through the pre-filter policy as well. So these are some of the techniques and these are some of the mechanisms through which you can secure your network, and each one of has a different technique and different mechanism and strategy to provide the security to your network. Basically, in previous video we did the block list using an IP address, but configuring an IP address and adding it completely to a block list means that the IP will be blocked on the network. Blocking an IP on the network is not an granular control over the services. If you have multiple services running on that IP address, suppose you have an application or a database or a web server running on an IP, and you ultimately block that IP in FTD, then all the applications and all the services that are running on that IP address will be suffered. So this does not provide a granular control. So the alternate is to have a URL based control over the services and over the applications that you are running in your environment. So the solution is URL filtering. URL filtering is a mechanism that provides a control on HTTP and HTTPS traffic rather than with the traditional port information, protocol information. The legacy firewalls that do not support application level filtering, that only support policy based on IP address and ports, which is not a granular control. So in next generation firewall we have URL filtering, and based on URL filtering we can block individual URLs against running on a single IP address. So this is the mechanism and this is the functionality of the URL filtering. And as I have explained previously, that there are sources of the feeds, that which URLs and which URLs are bad, which URLs are good. There is a mechanism to identify this. One is the dynamic, which is fetched from the Cisco cloud environment, which is called the telos, which has the information about all the URLs, DNS and networks information. Here you can see we have a global block list for URLs and do not block list for URLs. So you can add your entries, manual entries over here with the, and you do not need any license for these for manual URL filtering. Manual URL filtering means you can add your own entries and you can use that entry. You can upload your list over here, and that list will be reflected at the policy section, access control policy section. Here you can add a rule, and there is a tab of the URLs. When you upload the URL list over there, at object managements, you will see the list over here, and you can use that list in your rules of the access control policy. Then this was the manual URL filtering. Then we have category based URL filtering. Category means websites that belong to a certain classification or belong to same kind of nature, that are categorized in the FTD. So we have uncategorized applications, URLs. We have adult, we have advertisements, alcohol, enemas. Similarly, we have social media sites. Against social media sites, we have reputation against all of these. Reputation means that the you can say the level of risk on these applications. Uh, the level risk ranges from 1 to 5. 5 means trusted and 1 means untrusted. Means it's not a right or a valid application or site. You can also categorize based on reputation. You can also categorize based on the nature and kind of websites or URLs. We have pornography, politics. Suppose in an organization you want to block the social media sites, so you just have to click on social networking. You can either select based on trusted, favorable, neutral, questionable, untrusted, or you can completely block social networking sites as well. So this is the category based URL filtering. Manual filtering is not a scalable solution commonly used to make exceptions to category based filtering. Only part of the URL must match. In category based filtering, FTD caches the URLs and category. When we configure the category based filtering, the FTD will locally cache the URLs and its categories in its local database. If the URL information is not in the cache of FTD, the FTD will go to FMC and will query for the missing URL information. If FMC do not have the information about the missing URL, the FMC can be configured to go to collective security intelligence of the Cisco. Here I can you can have a look over here. This is the category of cloud services. URL filtering enable automatic updates and query Cisco cloud for unknown URLs. Means when a connection comes to FTD and FTD do not have the information about a URL in its local cache, it will query to the FMC server. When FMC server do not have the information about the URL, it can be configured to query Cisco cloud for the unknown URLs, and from there it can get the information about the unknown URL, and hence then can apply the policy accordingly on the URLs. So this is the information of how you can configure and what are the policies and what are the basics of the URL filtering inside the FTD to block or to allow URLs based on category, based on ratings, or based on what we can say. We looked over here the reputation. So in this way you can block, you can allow, you can also add your own URLs over here, and you can put them into selected URL section to allow or block and take action upon. There are actions based on these rules, and you can allow, trust, monitor, block, block with reset, interactive block with reset. As we have already discussed these actions and their meanings in access control policy overview, so these are the same actions that you can apply for the URL filtering as well. At the same time, you can control the applications. I will cover the application control policy in another video. However, you can still have a large category of applications that you can block, and with a granular control over the application level. Means if I want to block Facebook, I have multiple options against the Facebook. I want to block Facebook apps, Facebook comments, events, games, likes, chats, videos, VoIP, or any kind of sub part of the one of the application. So this is how you can control URLs and configure URL filtering inside FTD. Prerequisites to implement URL filtering is just a URL filtering license, and collective security intelligence cloud must be turned on from integration and from cloud services. Here you can see this check must be turned on. So this was the understanding behind URL filtering. In URL filtering, rules are directly applied in the access control policy, which I have showed over here. In access control policy, remember that security intelligence has a separate tab inside the access control policy where you can apply and configure security intelligence features, but URL filtering is configured from access control policy main tab under the rules section. Here you have URL filtering. From this tab you can configure URL filtering. So thanks for watching my video. In next video we will demonstrate how we can configure and test URL filtering inside FTD, and we will verify the results with the help of FTD. Either it should block or it should allow the URL based on our configurations. Thank you so much.